So today's guest, we have my former middle school social studies teacher, Mr. Christoper Innis. Thank you for joining me today, Christopher.
Yeah, no problem, Mike. Thanks for having me.
All right. So I'm going to start with a question. Can you talk to me a little bit about, your earlier stages growing up and obviously I know you played sports. What other than sports, what were your hobbies and interests growing up?
So, other than sports, which definitely took up a lot of time, I was very much into video games, and I think growing up, because I'm the oldest of four, I have two brothers and a sister. Video games were definitely a way for us to, blow off steam and also bond. And I'm sure, as I'm a parent now, it gave my parents kind of a little bit of a break with us playing video games. So I'm teaching my own daughters right now to play. I only have an Xbox 360 because once my daughters were
I still play Xbox 360.
So yeah, you know how it is. So I've taught them how to play Street Fighter and a little bit of MLB 2K10, which we're still working on. So definitely video games, and I remember music being a big interest of mine. Not so much making it, but just really listening to it.
Yeah, video games definitely is hitting home with me during this period of time because, obviously you're very limited with what you could do right now being in the quarantine. So I've kind of, been playing like old GameCube games, like the whole Mario thing. Xbox 360 is kind of a lot of, when would you say you started playing sports?
From probably a very early age. I remember my dad taking us out to the field to run around with a football, and that's when the older kids would be practicing football in pads. So this is like before organized sports. But we always had, our house looked like Modell's growing up. We always had a ball somewhere, or we had 15 hockey sticks, and no one ever played hockey. But just the earliest thing I remember is T-ball, and really starting very young, and baseball especially was pretty important to me. That was a way for me, I feel like, to bond with my dad, because I remember him watching games on TV, and I had no idea what was going on, but I remember sitting there with him and wanting to just hang out with him, and watching baseball is a big part of that. So very early, I remember.
Were there any other sports you took interest in playing aside from baseball?
Football was another interest. I really liked the contact of football and being able to to kind of like get that aggression out. And it was something that we always played at recess at school, that we were constantly getting in trouble, for doing with the lunch aides. Like tackle football at lunch was a big no-no. But definitely football. And my brothers were very big into wrestling. I didn't really get into wrestling that much. I didn't like it. But definitely football was a big one.
So obviously, you being the oldest of four siblings, do you think it's nice being from such because obviously you and your siblings all did very well in their sports careers. Do you think it's nice being a part of such a history of kind of what I would call like a sports royalty, But do you think that it's nice to be a part of that? Because I know a lot of people kind of like to have their individual success, but I mean it kind of seems like you and your family kind of get drawn into the same group. Do you think it's nice or?
Yeah, it was nice growing up because we were all kind of had our own sport that we excelled in. We played multiple sports. Like, even though I didn't like wrestling, I was kind of I don't want to say forced, but heavily persuaded to wrestle in rec. And your cousins were a big part of that also. The Secaucus rec wrestling, the Rosing family. Oh my God. They're speaking of royalty. All of you guys, awesome at sports. It was cool though that we all had our own way to highlight our sports abilities in different ways. I enjoyed it because that mindset of being athletic was it even continued like after practice, because now we're home, and my brother, who's a year younger than me, we were very competitive growing up, and from everything, like even to video games, where we would get into, I'm not going to say fist fights, but it got physical over Metal Gear Solid on the first PlayStation a couple times. So that, I always remember, like, that was really cool, where the competitiveness, it, after practice, it would carry on into other things at home. And I think that's really what kind of, we always pushed each other. And that always translated well to the field or the mat, or not really the mat, but, you know.
So you went to St. Mary's in Rutherford for high school, and obviously, you know, Secaucus and St. Mary's kind of just, you know, that's kind of a rivalry, I'd say.
Yeah.
Most people would say. So, what was that decision like going to St. Mary's? What kind of persuaded you?
So I really had no input into that decision at all. Secaucus was, in the 8th grade, we had 8 classes straight through the day, and I was never really good at math. I always struggled in math. It was very difficult for me. Even to this day, it's difficult. Like, I've joined Khan Academy now as an adult to help my kids do their math, and they're pretty young. So Secaucus High School, when I was in 8th grade, was switching towards block scheduling. And we sat down with my guidance counselor, and I was going to have math like first half of freshman year, and then not again until the second half of sophomore year. So my parents thought about it. They didn't think it would be good for me to be, you know, missing that much of math class during the year, and they kind of did research on block scheduling. Personally, they were not for it, so they looked at some other schools. St. Peter's Prep was the number 1 school that I think they looked at. I did not have the grades to get in there, and then St. Mary's was the number 2, and the kid across the street from us, actually, Lou Weaven, was I think he was a senior when I was in 6th or 7th grade. And his father mentioned to my dad, like, hey, you should check out St. Mary's. So my dad did. We met the baseball coach, and that was it. And that's where I went. And after my freshman year, I actually wanted to come back to Secaucus because I didn't like it. But I ended up staying there. I stuck it out, and it worked out well.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, my father actually went to St. Mary's. He's a little older than, like, a pretty older than you. So obviously that wouldn't, different times. So I was gonna ask, because obviously St. Mary's has kind of evolved now from the time you were there. How different would you say, or do you think St. Mary's is now compared to when you were there?
Well, I think it's very different. I graduated from St. Mary's in 2004, so I went back to coach as an assistant baseball coach in 2009. Was the first spring I was out of college, and it was very different. I remember being there, and the courses that I took were pretty rigorous, and you know, the teachers that were there had been there for years before us. And when I went back as a coach, they kind of, from what I understood from what the players were saying, you know, I would ask, like, hey, is this person still here? Is that person still here? None of the people were still there that were teachers when I was there, and it didn't seem like it was the same. It had changed a lot. The focus seemed to be more on athletics than it was on academics. But, you know, it wasn't really a strong academic school when I went. Not to talk crap on them, but
yeah. So you chose to go to St. Peter's College when you made your choice. So what kind of influenced that, and what was the acclimation like going from high school baseball into obviously college baseball, which is, you know, a whole different ball game?
I think in high school, it's, you know, you need to be able to hit, play the field, and if you have a decent arm and you can throw the ball consistently, they're going to ask you to pitch. So it was my last 2 years of high school. I had a great baseball coach who was very into the fundamentals of the game. Charlie Giacchetti. He now runs his own batting cage instructional lessons up in I want to it's Fairfields, complete performance baseball. So he was really focused on the fundamentals and things you wouldn't even think about. Like, I remember when he taught us, when you take your lead, you want to take your lead on the front part of first base, because to the pitcher, it looks like you're closer. So you can actually get a couple more feet off the bag without the pitcher noticing, like things that you didn't even think about, which I now teach my own players. But when I got to college, it was actually easier because of how rigorous this baseball coach was in high school. So also in college, I was specializing in a position. I didn't have to. My first year, I played the outfield, and I was the closing pitcher. But after my freshman year, I only focused on pitching, so it was a little easier. We were mostly left on our own for conditioning and stuff like that. So the transition was difficult more academically, because I was always a procrastinator and I didn't really take academics seriously. And to now, like I'm sure you've experienced, where, hey, you have this paper, right? It's due 2 months from now. I was constantly doing things like hours before they were due.
Yeah, I know. I feel like that's everybody, though.
Yeah, it's a good thing, and it's not a good thing. But the transition as far as baseball was pretty easy going into St. Peter's. Competition-wise, was very difficult. I remember my first college at bat. We saw this kid who was pumping like 91, and I had never seen that before. So I remember getting into the box and like trying to pick up his release point and just hearing the ball whiz past me, and I was like, "Oh crap! Like this is pretty serious." So,
yeah. So you obviously had quite the career at St. Peter's. You made the All-Decade team and actually got Player of the Week a few times. What was your experiences like there?
As far as baseball, it was interesting because they had the coach that was there that recruited me to play for them was let go over the summer. So we got a new head coach in the fall for fall ball, and the situation was that basically I had a scholarship for baseball there, but I had to make the team in order to keep it. So they would honor the scholarship for the fall semester, and if I made the baseball team, they would honor it for the spring semester. So that was, I remember going to fall ball, is Division I baseball, and I'm coming from a small high school in New Jersey with no college experience, and now I'm told that if I don't make the team, I'm not going to be able to afford to go there. So aside from wanting to do well in baseball, there's all this added stress of wanting to make the team and take the financial burden off my family. So I don't know. I remember a lot of pressure going in, and then just kind of settling in, because the guys that were on the team, we had a lot of guys from Hudson County that actually I had played against during the regular season. We had a lot of guys from Weehawken. There were a couple guys from Bayonne, and we all really kind of meshed very well. We're all like fighting for a scholarship spot, and it was high level stress, but after making the team and finding out that you're going to be part of it, it was a little bit easier.
Mm-hmm. So I'm going to get into the St. Louis Cardinals story. I don't obviously quite remember all that you told me because that was a while ago, but could you kind of break down that whole ordeal?
Yeah, so I remember going into the summer of my sophomore year, I was a total meathead in the weight room. Not really doing any of the light work that pitchers are supposed to do. I remember lifting really heavy, like doing a lot of bench press, a lot of deadlifting. So the summer of my sophomore year, playing summer ball, I partially tore my hamstring and had the big black and blue bruise all the way on the back of my leg down to like my ankle. So coming into my junior year, I had to do a lot of heavy rehab for that. And I think that actually added velocity because I was working on rehabbing my hamstring. I did a lot of lower body work and kind of eased off the upper body stuff. So my junior year, I touched 92 on the radar gun in the preseason. And we go into our first set of games against Longwood University. And there's a scout there from the St. Louis Cardinals. And he's not there by any stretch of the imagination to see me. he's there to look at another guy on our team who actually got drafted by the Cardinals, Santo Mertz. And he's there to see him. And I remember coming out of the bullpen one night, and we were already down a bunch of runs. And just trying to, like, I noticed that there are people there that are dressed a little bit nicer than people that are normally there to see, Jersey City's Division I baseball team play against Virginia. So I just really tried to light the radar gun up. And I remember I hit 91 in that game. And after the game, one of the kids who was upstairs charting pitches came down with this letter from the Cardinals that said, "Hey, you're considered a prospect. Fill this out and get it back to me. We're going to follow you for the rest of the season." And I remember that being a big – that was like a dream come true. That was like a major league team expressing interest in I'm sorry, I mixed up the dates. It was my summer of my junior year, and my senior year was when this happened. And I remember it being a big deal. Like, you get the letterhead from the St. Louis Cardinals with the logo on it, and I'm filling it out, and I'm like, holy shit, like, this is real. Like, this is a step in the right direction. So that was really big for me.
Right. So since we're on baseball stories, I wasn't going to let you get away from this one. Talk to us about the Butterfinger story.
So a wayward Butterfinger had found its way into my baseball bag going on an away trip, and it was I remember it being quite hot under the bus where my bag was stored, and the Butterfinger in question happened to be in the bag where my white baseball pants were. Now, we wore gray baseball pants on Saturday, white baseball pants on Sunday, and Saturday, I open my bag up, we're all good to go, throw my gray pants on, we go to the game, perfect. Saturday night, come back to the hotel, go to sleep. Sunday morning, wake up early before we go down to the breakfast buffet, and I noticed that I have a large brown stain on the back of my white baseball pants from where that Butterfinger had melted. And it had appeared that I had crapped my pants. So I tried washing the stain out in the hotel bathroom sink, which did nothing but only really make it more soggy. And then went out to pitch the next day with my soggy Butterfinger crap pants.
Oh my God. It's almost as funny as the first time I heard it.
Yeah.
All right. So what made you get into teaching? Was that always kind of your plan?
Yeah, I always hated school, and I hated it as a student, and not even just thought it was boring. Like, I just dreaded going to school. I had a couple good teachers along the way, and both my grandfathers were teachers. One taught in Union City, one taught in Jersey City, and I thought that if I could become a teacher, I could kind of make teaching and learning fun for the kids that didn't like to go to school like myself. So when I went into St. Peter's, I thought, that I wanted to become a teacher, and that teaching was my plan B, because like everyone assumes you're going to become the next famous baseball player. And I thought that would be a good fallback. And, since my first day in the classroom, I've loved it. It's awesome. And especially dealing with kids that don't like being there. I feel like I do better with the students that hate school than the students that actually love it, that live for extra credit and all that stuff. So I really enjoy what I do.
Right. So obviously you started teaching at Secaucus before the whole evolution of the facility now. And we actually, Secaucus has one of the most, I guess you could call it, state-of-the-art facilities in all of, New Jersey high schools, How did you like the adjustment of that?
I think it's great for the student athletes of Secaucus. I think, we're very fortunate in Hudson County to be a school where you can accommodate all of these sports, and you can do it effectively. The new weight room's beautiful. The soccer team plays on County Avenue on a turf field. It accommodates softball. I don't think it can accommodate baseball, but the indoor facilities, the new gym is beautiful, and these are things that student athletes need. I also know that I coach softball at Harrison High School right now, and we're fighting. Anytime it rains outside, we can't go outside. You have baseball, you have boys volleyball. Gym time is limited. So for the school to be able to make these facilities for the athletes that, they don't have to worry about, hey, I guess practice is canceled because of, bad weather. It's awesome. And I think it makes a statement for the school, that athletes are taken care of and that this is something that we care about. And it shows in what they invested in making the facilities as awesome as they are.
Mm-hmm. So obviously you being a coach, a teacher, and a parent, how do you feel as though those three go hand in hand?
As an athlete, I think you always kind of prepare for the worst, and then you just deal with it. You come up with the game plan. This is what I'm going to do. This is how I want to get there. Same thing with teaching. This is what I want to do. This is how I'm going to get there. Same thing with coaching. This is what we need to improve on. This is how I'm going to get there. Parenting for me has been absolute chaos. From the moment my daughter was born in 2013 to up to now, where we are homeschooling our kindergartner, pre-K child, and my son is just turned 10 months old. Just chaos, man. It's it's chaos, but it's fun. Like every minute of it is fun. It's stressful. It's thinking on your feet. It's nonstop craziness. But I think my background as a teacher has helped me, as I'm sure many teachers are working with their own kids. So that's helped me have more patience at home. Being an athlete has, mental toughness is big in this situation, as I'm sure you've realized. But yeah, I think those things, teaching, being an athlete, being a coach, and being a parent, it's all the same thing. It's all those different hats that you have to wear. They all kind of feed off of each other. The experience is the same for a lot of them.
Right. All right. So now I'm going to ask you, what are some hidden talents of yours that many might not know about you?
Hidden talents. So I'm still terrible, but I'm a pretty decent writer. And I'm going to sound super old. Recently discovered Reddit.
I'm always on there, actually.
So one of my favorite subreddits to be on is 2-sentence horror stories. Okay. So I've written a couple 2-sentence horror stories that have, and this is going to sound totally lame, that have gotten over 1,000 upvotes. So I enjoy writing. That's a talent of mine that I don't really show. What else? Oh, this is another talent that's very useless. I am really good at feeding a baby without putting a bib on the baby. I can do it without making a mess. I don't know why. It's really good. I'm good at that. That's a useless talent. The other one is I can eat 50 chicken nuggets without getting sick.
Wow.
Not
really.
It
depends, though. Where are they from?
I go Wendy's for the chicken.
Okay. I can respect that.
I feel like the McDonald's ones are kind of heavy, but Wendy's.
Yeah. Well, that's why you see. I think they have like a challenge or something at McDonald's, where they that's what they're known for. Kind of, it's like the 50 nugget challenge or something like that.
Oh, really?
Yeah, a lot of people partake in it, but that I'll get into that in one of my later points. As you know,
that was a specialty actually. I remember on road trips for baseball, we'd always stop off like the Maryland House on. I don't know if it was 95 South or where it was, but we'd always stop there. They had a McDonald's, and my specialty was 2 20-piece nuggets. Oh, sorry.
Okay.
I'm getting a FaceTime call. My specialty was 2 20-piece nuggets and a Big Mac with a blue Powerade, which was I'm probably still paying for at this point as a 34-year-old.
All right, so since we talk talents, now we're going to talk weaknesses.
Okay. So Weaknesses. I would say that, like I said earlier, procrastination is definitely a weakness. As far as teaching, if I have to get grades in by Friday at noon, those grades are going to go in Friday at 11 o'clock. If I have to do something even for coaching, so now for coaching softball, the athletic director wants me to write in a bio for all of my seniors. That I actually did early and up front because it's for athletes, so I had that done right away. But there was another aspect of it where I needed to hand in my voucher to get paid as a coach, and that was due today at 1 o'clock, and it was submitted today at 12:55. So definitely procrastination. Another weakness, I absolutely the laziest human being on earth. I remember during the World Series, I was trying to make the TV louder, and the remote was across the room. So rather than getting up and making, just changing the volume from the remote, I spent probably a good 3 or 4 innings on my phone trying to see if Apple had an app for me to change the volume on my television. So definitely procrastination, laziness. Also, probably I curse too much, which I'm scaling back for this, but definitely cursing.
No, I could definitely relate. I'm sure a lot of people could.
Yeah.
So now, the question we've kind of been waiting for. Now I'm going to ask you to rank McDonald's, Burger King, and Wendy's.
Okay. So what's our criteria? What are we doing? Are we doing like based on just overall?
Overall, yeah. In terms of your personal preference, least being the one you like the least, and then obviously your favorite would be the last one you mentioned.
All right. So I'll go least to best, and I'll tell you why. So least would be probably Burger King, because I feel like Burger King, as a parent, has the oldest Happy Meals, like the toys ever. Like,
yeah,
my kids to Burger King yesterday, and we got Angry Birds toys. Like, Angry Birds came out quite some time ago.
That was, yeah, I was like in 7th grade, I think, in that first game.
So then it would be Burger King's my least favorite. The middle would have to be McDonald's. Like I said, I've had many of the chicken nugget 20 combo with Big Mac. Those are all awesome. Best would probably have to be Wendy's. And Wendy's, the Baconator is good, but probably because of memories. There have been many post-drunken nights where I've ended up at Wendy's and just had good times. Either good times were had and then Wendy's was had, or good times were had and continued into Wendy's. I feel like every good night from my, I would say, mid-20s, up until 3 days ago, has somehow been correlated to Wendy's if we're talking fast food places. So Wendy's would be my number one.
Are we going to hear the Mr. Sagro story?
So, yes, I will. I'll give you the the appropriate version of the Coach Sagro story. So it was after an 8th grade graduation. The teachers kind of went out for dinner afterwards, and I found myself in a situation where it was myself and Coach Sagro. There were several other teachers there that I will not name, but we end up at Wendy's in Secaucus, and I think I ordered one thing. I ordered one chicken sandwich, and he ordered 2. And then we started talking about nutrition and protein, and I felt bad that I only ordered 1, he ordered 2, so I went back for 2 more. And Coach Sagro saw what I was doing and was like, oh, that's a good idea. And then he went back for a couple more. And then we escalated this, and I can confidently say that there were about 18 chicken sandwiches consumed at our table that night. It's really like, I guess you had to be there story, because it doesn't sound like a lot, but 18 chicken sandwiches between two adults at a Wendy's around midnight is pretty magical.
Sounds like you guys were kind of going blow for blow,
We were, but he's leagues above me. He's got the protein intake thing down. I can't even compete with that.
But yeah, as for my ranking, believe it or not, and I use this analogy with Mr. Shiner. I actually have kind of McDonald's still in the middle, but I kind of have the flip of yours. I had Burger King first, and the way I compare this is like Burger King is kind of something like it works, but you're not sure why. Like, for an example, I haven't enjoyed an episode of Criminal Minds in years, but they used to be my favorite thing. But yet, when I go to sleep every night and I'm looking to watch something, for some reason I find myself, leaving that on. I can't tell you why, but it just works, Burger King, I can't tell you why I, take such a liking to it in terms of if I'm out and I need to stop at a fast food place, that's the place I'm always going to, I will say, though, in terms of desserts, I feel as though compared to McDonald's shakes and Wendy's Frosties, I feel as though Burger King, that's a category their shakes can take number one in.
I agree.
Fries, I would actually say McDonald's.
Have to be number one.
Yeah.
They have.
But yeah, the Wendy's probably in terms of like the sandwiches, the burgers, probably I'd put number one. The chicken sandwich, yeah. Definitely, I put these at one.
But like I said, I could probably maybe also swing to Burger King, because I will not say that the Wendy's hamburgers were eaten without being under the influence of alcohol. So
yeah, I've actually taken a liking to White Castle a lot too lately.
So good. What do you go with White Castle?
If I'm going with a drink, I have to go with the shake.
Yep, absolutely.
I'm always a shake guy. Yeah. As far as like the side, one time I had to go both onion rings and fries just to be on the safe side. Usually it's a toss up. I probably lean towards the fries.
Okay.
And I know they have what I heard the Impossible slider. It's called. I heard those are really good, and they're on the healthier side. But I usually go with the cheese slider.
Yeah, good call. I would say. Now, do you go crave case or do you go meal?
Oh, the other day I went crave case.
Crave case.
Not for me, but I was, if I'm looking for just me, to tell you the truth, I might go 10 to 15 sliders.
Agreed. That's the only way to do it. You cannot. They're like potato chips. You cannot have one or two sliders.
Yeah. Have you seen the movie though with Harold and Kumar?
Absolutely.
Awesome. I've seen all three of them. I have the DVD of the. I've watched it a good 3 times just in this quarantine alone.
What's out of the 3? Which one's your favorite?
That one, yeah. The White Castle one's first. I'd actually say that the most recent one, the Christmas one, is second, and then I'd put the Guantanamo Bay third.
Agreed.
Mm-hmm. So now this next one, it's been kind of a debate for like the dawn of time: cookies or brownies.
100% cookies. I had this conversation with my wife the other day. We were at Costco and they had the mini brownies or the cookies, and you have to go cookies. That's my own personal preference though. I'm a fat ass. I love Chips Ahoy, Oreos, any kind of cookie with chocolate in it, even the non-chocolate cookies like sugar cookies. Awesome. What do you go? You go cookie or brownie?
Out of the two, I'd say cookies, but honestly, like, sometimes brownies will hit the spot if you haven't had them in a while. You know what I mean? Like a good brownie, you know what I mean? Shiner made this point too. You put them side by side, there's only so many ways you can make brownies, like not that many. Cookies, you got Oreos, Chips Ahoy, which is basically chocolate chip, but sugar, just you name it. Like
countless.
Every assortment of cookies you could think of, they probably have it, But brownies, it's pretty straightforward.
My experience with brownies is that I can't make a good brownie. So it's always dry, and I always get those hard edges that stick to the pan, and you can only eat so many of those.
Yeah. Have you ever been to the Willowbrook Mall in Wayne?
Yeah.
Do you know? Have you seen or tried the cookie place, the Great American Cookies?
No, I have. I mean, I haven't been there in probably a solid 4 years.
Wow. Whenever this is over, you have to make it. I highly recommend.
It's good.
It's probably the greatest cookie I've ever had in my entire life.
Oh,
and
wow.
I could wholeheartedly say that. It's right next to the Dairy Queen when you first walk in.
All right, yeah, definitely got to try that. I'm always looking for new, especially now. Like, there's nothing to do but play video games and eat. I mean, also parent, which is important, but
That's like my guilty, pleasure though. Dairy Queen and then that right next to each other. Oh my God!
Oh.
In the summer, I went. It was kind of like a first date I went on with a girl that I met in college, and like we were at the mall, and then I didn't put forth the best, first presentation in terms of the trying to like look healthy part.
Where'd you go first, Cookie Place or Dairy Queen?
I went Dairy Queen first, and then I used the excuse of, my sister and mom will definitely enjoy this when I bring them home to them. Needless to say, my sister and mom might have gotten 1.5 of the cookies that night. But
that's a power move, though. That's smart.
It was definitely a power move. I don't regret it in the slightest.
There you go. Who wants to be holding ice cream while you're eating your cookie? It's gonna melt.
Exactly. And then you got to dunk it in, and So now I'm gonna ask, what's your favorite movie genre?
Favorite movie genre would have to be. I would go horror. Any type of horror. I just rented. I haven't watched it yet though. From Prime, The Dead Don't Die with Bill Murray and forget his name, the dude from the Star Wars movies. I don't know, but any type of horror movie.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I actually would agree on that. I kind of carry myself as a horror movie fan, but the tricky thing about it is I have seen horror movies, but like if a diehard were to ask me like I wouldn't be able to but I am a huge fan of the It series with Stephen King.
Yeah, those
I saw both the two new ones, but I actually have the DVD of the 1990 original. And I watched that a good, probably 5 times. And I love that more than the remakes that just came out.
Yeah, the original stuff is solid. I think because, when those came out, I feel like they weren't trying – it really wasn't about, money, trying to get it under a certain, PG-13. We want this one to be PG-13. It was really just about making a scary movie. So, if you go back and look at some of those horror movies – they were just to be horrifying. They weren't trying to capitalize on money and all that. So I feel like some of those are the better ones than some of the current ones. Because how many jump scares can you after a while?
It becomes redundant, There's only so much they could put out content-wise nowadays with that, kind of how the new movies go.
Right.
Mm-hmm. So I'm gonna wrap it up with a last question. How has the coronavirus kind of shifted what you're used to, or your day-to-day schedule before this?
So, I mean, I think it's terrible on the toll that it's taken, especially on New Jersey. As of the last thing I read, we're the number 2 most affected state as far as deaths and infections. I think it's awful. For me personally, it's really thrown a wrench into my schedule because I have a second job at night that I work 5 nights a week. So my day was basically wake up at 6:30, teach from 7:40 to 2:30. Then in the fall, I coached soccer, and then I would come home for maybe an hour and a half, and then go do my night job for 5 hours a night. And that was Monday through Friday. So with all this free time, I think it's great that, I'm able to spend more time with my kids. I'm able to, to get stuff done. My daughter's here right now. I'm able to I'm really able to be more present in my kids' lives, because before this, the weekends were big for us. That was the only time I would be able to hang out with my kids and see my family, and even get stuff done around the house. But now that we're pretty much home, it's totally new. Like, I'm learning things about my kids that I didn't see before, like interests that they have. We started playing Street Fighter. They're into Street Fighter. They're 6 and 4-year-old girls. Like, they know all the characters. They know Blanca, Dalsim, all that. So while I think it's terrible what's going on, I'm fortunate that my family's healthy, that we're doing well, and getting by. But I don't know. I'm kind of nervous about when things open back up, how it's going to be, because I'm going to go right back to whatever it was, like 13 hours a day, 5 days a week of work. So
right, it's definitely terrible on all fronts, and I don't see there's never gonna be like a symbolic, okay, guys, we're back to normalcy. It's gonna obviously be a slow, gradual way into it. I definitely think that if there are any positives to come out of this, it's allowed us to obviously, as you said, in your case, have more time with your family. It's kind of allowed people to evolve in a way, and I guess get better in some aspects that they weren't in before this, whether it be on a fitness level. When even with this, like, I could even argue that if the virus never happened, I wouldn't even be doing like podcasts that I'm doing. You know what I mean? Like, it kind of you got to get creative with some things.
Right.
But it is terrible. I hope for the people that obviously aren't working right now, like, that's a bummer and obviously is detrimental. Even for me, like, I was kind of robbed out of the last like 3 or so months of my first year of college. Seniors in high school aren't getting graduating in prom.
Sorry.
I just hope that everything is at least somewhat back to normalcy soon.
Right, I agree, and those are things that, like you said, like, it's terrible for you, but in a way, it's your freshman year, so you're going to have more time. For the seniors in high school, the seniors in college, I mean, I have to register a new vehicle. I was looking at the DMV website, and there's all this information about a driving test. Like, could you imagine turning 18 now? I'm like, yeah, now I can drive, but can't get your license because all this stuff. So it definitely, there's other things that you don't think about, especially for me, because like I'm past all that now. So like but there's people that are losing out on things that it's terrible. So like you said, hopefully things do get better soon.
Well, I appreciate you coming on here and talking with me today, Mr. Innis. It was fun. It was a pleasure, and I hope you and your family are staying safe.
Thanks. Same here, Mike. You can call me Chris now. We're not my class.
All right. Well, take care, man. It was a pleasure talking to you and seeing you.
All right. Great talking to you. Good luck with everything.
You too.